And we are recording once again with Dr. Ken Alibek. And you came on a week ago yesterday, and we discussed autism and all things related and all things possibly causing it. But we didn't get into the role of infectious diseases in autism. And so as not to float off into the ether like we did last time by me constantly derailing it. Dr. Alibek, could you direct us in the correct direction of infectious diseases and potential causation with autism?
Tommy, thank you very much for your desire to listen to me, and
Absolutely.
hopefully for some doctors and for some parents it would be interesting as well. And not just from the point of kind of curiosity. In my opinion, the topic of autism is so important that so many people are suffering now. Every year we have more and more kids having autism. We talk about autism and possible causes. We talk about clinical manifestations, what kind of treatments we are using. But there is another part of autism actually is, which is parents suffering, because parents having autistic children, they have a kind of, many parents have kind of severe devastation, because children, let me say, when they're still young, let me say, we don't see many problems. Of course, we see the child is autistic, but at the same time, we, in many cases, do not understand what we should expect in the future. So some children, not a big number of them, are able to overgrow somehow. They are not becoming healthy, but they are kind of getting adapted to their conditions and able to live a kind of more or less acceptable life. I mean, just of course, some of them are capable of becoming relatively regular people, get education and start work. But this is kind of the tip of an iceberg. Because the iceberg of autism, let me say, is much severe. I mean, much severer. You know why it's people don't think that autism is a big problem? Because in millions of cases, they simply don't see these children, because these children are at their homes, let me say, at residential facilities. They're going to special schools, special departments of different schools. Some of them are getting, unfortunately, when the disease is engulfing them completely, they're taken to special facilities, specialized facilities, and they end up, let me say, with a kind of, it's even difficult to explain, because people who are outside of this field, outside of this area, they cannot even understand the level of suffering of parents of these kids and the kids themselves. And just that, why I think it's important. If you remember last time, I told you a little bit about history of autism discovery and how it was classified. And you know what? From this point, it's interesting that autism is still considered a neuropsychiatric disorder. Let's say behavioral disorder, these type of things. And when it was discovered, and classified, there was no good understanding of viral infections, good understanding of inflammation. Then we didn't know much about many chronic diseases. We didn't know much about our DNA and genome and just what, I mean, kind of genetic diseases. These type of things, let me say, were not well known. It resulted in a type of treatment which we are using nowadays, most behavioral therapy, and let me say, and the kind of treatment of by psychiatrists and neurologists using some antipsychotics, anticonvulsants, different types of medications focusing on not even on modulation, let me say, just some medications with the try to balance a mental state of a child, such as a child. And just parents, many parents, when I talk to them, and maybe just what I need to say, having not hundreds, even thousands of children on treatment who have been treated before, been on treatment now, and a long line of children staying, parents staying, let me say, for treatment. Unfortunately, having a license in the former Soviet Union, of course, I can treat the kids in those countries, because my diploma actually is a diploma and license from the former Soviet Union. Thanks God, it's applicable to all former Soviet Union countries and even some countries of the former Warsaw Bloc. And having this number of kids, once I tried to count how many consultations I had. It's when I started counting, just kind of approximation, I was quite scared because it's according to my calculation, it was about 25 or 20,000 consultations, not 27,000 kids, because when we deal with autism, there is no way to consult and make decisions, let me say, based on a single consultation. Of course, we need to do many things, and kids, they go through a very long period of treatment. In some cases, it's 5, 6, 10, even just I had kids with about 20 consultations being on treatment for about 2 years. It's a very difficult disease, but when we know how to treat it, of course, this we see some significant, or I would say a dramatic change. And I can even say, and because I didn't have time to publish it, but I'll start to publish clinical case reports showing, let me say, how we can treat and take children from a severe autism state to the state of no autism, because there are some clinical principles to we can use just to define whether a child is autistic or not. And especially just when some parents in a few years say that when they go to some doctors, psychiatrists or neurologists after long treatment, they would say, oh, okay, there is no autism your child is having. But when they start to explain what happened, they say, no, it's not possible because autism is not curable. Yeah. In this case, I have no idea what happened, but your child definitely has no autism. But at the same time, your talks about somebody who is treating it, let me say, it's a kind of BS because it's absolutely incurable. Everybody knows that it's not curable. That's why it seems to me our second talk in this series, I'd like to dedicate to what we actually see in autistic kids. We'll put aside things related to neuropsychological symptoms, behaviors, things for communication, social communication, this type of things, let's put aside. Even we know what it is. From time to time, we'll be coming back. And if you don't mind, I'll start this part. It's okay if,
Yep.
because my talk will be quite long, but at the same
Go for it.
time, in my opinion, it has such a huge importance. And physicians who would look and listen to this, if they start analyzing what they see in these kids, they would definitely understand what I'm talking about. And last time we talked about maternal infections and maternal inflammation, right? And today I wanted to, touch this problem from a different side. And you know what I mean? Because when a doctor sees a child with autism, of course, they pay attention because in the great majority of cases, it would be a physician in the field of neurology, psychiatry. Sometimes we can see some endocrinologists not highly involved in this. And actually, that's it. Maybe in some cases we could see some physicians in the field not highly related to the things I'm planning to talk about. Why? Just seeing these children, of course, because medicine is so we work in compartments now. There's a compartment of neurological diseases, psychiatric diseases, endocrinology, and even within endocrinology, we can find some physicians who would be taking care of or diagnosing specific areas of endocrinology, like thyroid problems, a kind of physician who would be perfect in thyroid diseases, somebody who would be perfect in adrenal gland diseases. These type of things. We are in a very small, very narrow compartment. This is one of the problems we're experiencing at this point. The second problem we have, it actually happened many years ago. The field of infectious diseases was actually started taking shape 2 centuries ago. And what we see at that point, when I say we see, of course, physicians, we saw acute diseases. We saw a big number of contagious infectious diseases like plague, like anthrax, like smallpox, and then some diseases which would be having some kind of obvious symptoms of infection. And just in all focus of infectious disease physicians were on treating, finding solutions for acute infections. Understanding of chronic infections came much later. And just even now, I can say we don't have many physicians. And my question is this, whether we have any at this point, at least kind of institutions which would be studying and developing treatment for chronic infections. And because chronic infections, they are much more, I would say, dangerous than acute infections, which are visible. We can diagnose them and we can treat them, from this point. That's why many years ago, I would say maybe half a century ago, it was said, okay, we are planning to close a book of infectious diseases. And because somebody who said this most likely meant chronic acute infections. And what we live now in the world of many chronic diseases. And these chronic diseases, in many cases, they have triggers. we have triggers, and these triggers are, in many cases, so-called viruses, bacteria, some other pathogens, which are not able to cause severe acute infections, but they're able to cause chronic infections, establish a kind of latent state, I mean, chronic, persistent infections, which in many cases we don't pay attention to. Okay, because people say, okay, we're all carriers of this. But there is another problem, and it's kind of well known, because we know that autism is a genetic disease. No, nobody argues that it's how many genes are involved in it can be detected. I mean, either mutated, or we can see some epigenetic changes, meaning that they are not congenital. They can be caused by either kind of environmental factors. And now many people say, okay, we understand that the most important environmental factors are infections. Infections, not the ones we saw a century ago or 2 centuries ago. It's a completely different, set of infections. And you remember I told you about torch infections last time.
Mm-hmm.
But today, without talking about etiology and pathogenesis, I'd like to tell a little bit about clinical manifestations in autism. And it's interesting from this book, because when we have a kind of clinically accepted diagnosis, when we understand a certain disease, we start describing what kind of symptoms we see in one or another case, in one or another disease. And at some point, quite a long time ago, the kind of concept of comorbidities of autism have been established. I mean, we started a kind of getting some knowledge that autism is not just neuropsychiatric disorder. It's a kind of multi-system disorder. And children and young adults, or even adults with autism, they have a number of, at this point, let's call them comorbidities. But in my opinion, they shouldn't be called comorbidities. They should be clinical manifestations of autism pathogenesis. I mean, the mechanism of this pathology development. And but before I start talking about this, I'd like to tell about the kind of devastating information which is not well known to many people, or actually not known to anybody. We know that average life expectancy here in the United States about 75, 79 years, and we're moving towards 80 years of expectation. But for children who have autism, it's not the case. Average life expectancy with them is about 36, 39 years.
Wow.
How they die? How they die? Many of them die of depression. Many of them die of poor nutrition, not because they're not fed, but because they have a special preferences what they eat, and many other things which I'm going to tell today. You need to imagine that in the 21st century, we have a situation when a huge number of people, millions of people, are not able to live long lives. It's absolutely impossible. It's absolutely not acceptable. In this case, if some people think that using behavioral therapies or using some psychotropic drugs were able to treat diseases which are underlying autism, which are comorbidities of autism, and the diseases which actually are capable of causing shortage of life, and bring these people to the states in which, for example, they have very low, short life expectancy. It's absolutely impossible. And you know what? Sometimes I think, okay, many years ago, I had a kitten. This kitten was very nice, but you know, when I was playing with the kitten, and he was trying, let me say, to escape and hide someplace, he was putting his head under the blanket and thought he was invisible. Okay, and this is what we have. Maybe this example, I mean, just to give a kind of manifestation of the situation. We hide our heads. We say, okay, we treat, we study, but you know, and pretend that because we do this, and we see so many books which say, okay, neurodiversity, we talk about behavioral therapies which can improve the children conditions, say, well, okay, we do everything possible. And you know, just in this case, this is everything we can reach. But this is the biggest, another biggest problem, because we see many things. We're physicians or scientists, we see so many things. And especially people who are working in the field of clinical science. I mean, I'm not saying anything against geneticists, microbiologists, or some scientists who are studying, let me say, particular molecular mechanisms, and so some other things. But you know, but many things with autism, they're on the surface. Just we need to have just a very close look. And the people who need to work on this, it's a completely new class of or existing class of physicians. These are the experts in the field of infections, in the field of immunity, in the field of allergy, autoimmunity, and some other conditions we can see in autistic children. And with this understanding, of course, we know what kind of treatment we need to apply. Because all these conditions, they are even having different names. They're having, I mean, kind of either the same or close the same underlying conditions. This is the case. And again, in order to start, but what I'd like to say, it's not just my knowledge, because what I saw myself actually is confirming in 70–80% cases what has been already published. Published by different groups, maybe one publication, two publications. And I see, when I read publications, I see how some scientists, of course, you cannot show your pain when you have a scientific publication. But you know, it's through many publications, let me say, just a kind of unsaid question. Okay, guys, why don't you hear what we say? Why don't you pay attention to what we publish? Why having so many proofs that it's infection and multiple? Why, when you see autoimmunity, when you see severe allergic problem, when you see many other things, why don't you use anything for treating these kids? Why FDA or some institutions responsible, let me say, for developing national strategy, national concepts, why they don't do this? The Institute of Infectious Diseases and Allergy, the National Institute of Health, has 0 projects to study infections, study inflammation in autism. And the data is so obvious, and we have no idea why they have no extramural or intramural projects on this. We know just how much effort is a big number of work is done by the Institute of Mental Health, of the National Institute of Health. But they are not, they are psychiatrists, they are neurologists, they are not infectious disease people. They're not experts in studying inflammation. By saying this, let me give some kind of enumeration, just because when we talk about this, enumeration actually is absolutely essential. Essential from this point, because everything I say, you can find published in research journals, reputable research journals, or just based on my experience, what I saw myself, even saw so many cases specifically. Just why we don't talk about such a big number of infections. Not infections. Sometimes people say, okay, you can start saying again about infections, torch infections, this type of things, and so on. Okay, from this point, I wouldn't talk about what kind of causative agents involved. I'd like to give you several examples of some infections. We can see systemic and local infections we see all the time in these children. Just some of them, let me say, is obvious. Some of them are obvious. Some of them are hidden. But when we talk to some parents, you would find out many of them are having ear infections. And the ear infections are quite severe. Okay, first question. Okay, some of them are having brain infections, inflammation in the brain, a severe form of infection. Many of them are having various types of allergies. Because some people say, okay, allergy is not infection. No, just we need to know from the immune system state. You say it's a problem of hypersensitivity. Then we know that autoimmunity, let me say, is a huge player in autism. And clinical manifestations of these disorders or diseases, we call them comorbidities. But if, for example, we analyze from medical classification, like using international International Catalog of Diseases, ICD. You could see, for example, these diseases like ear infections. It's a separate nosological field, nosological disease, causing severe problems in children. And in case of autism, in about 20, 30, 40%, depending on the country, we see these children are having this infections. Then many parents or physicians, or maybe they don't pay attention, they have urogenital tract infections. About 30% of them are having infections of kidneys, bladder infections. Okay, it's another infection, it's severe infection, it's chronic. Sometimes when it's diagnosed, they try to treat it, but in about a month, we see it's coming again. In many parents, they even didn't suspect that their children had urogenital infections. Many of them are having oral infections. Just how many kids are having destroyed teeth? Some of them are having, let me say, practically no teeth, they're all destroyed. But what it is, it's metabolic endocrine imbalances, but without, let me say, pathogenic microbiota, microflora in the mouth, because it's infection. They destroy teeth. They have periodontal. They have infected tongue. They have, let me say, chronic tonsil. I don't know. Let me say, just the entire, let me say, oral area, let me say, is infected. They have stomatitis like herpes viral infections. They have some bacterial problems in the mouth, infection. They have fungal, and it's known. It's but people treat autism symptoms. But how would you treat autism symptoms, for example, if you don't treat an infection or a huge number of infections, which actually are inducing and promoting the state, because it's inflammation, which actually is attacking the entire body, and this inflammation is attacking the brain, inducing neuroinflammation. We have a big number of infections, so-called rhinitis. Rhinitis, inflammation in the nose, in the nostril. These infections, we can call them infectious allergic rhinitis. Many kids are having sinusitis. I mean, just this. I mean, sinuses. They infect. Okay, so and we don't treat them. And just again, they have many skin infections. Because it's many people don't know they have different fungal infections. I mean, just on different places of skin. They have some nail fungal infections. They have fungus, let me say, on their toes, toenails. And it's just because these kids are getting infections. And the only thing I'd like to say, it's they are not diagnosed well. And physicians in many cases, they don't pay attention to it because they think that the biggest part is neurological. But you cannot treat a neurological problem, because we're not talking at this point about etiology or pathogenesis. We're talking this. If you don't treat comorbidities, it's a general principle. You're not able to treat the major disease. Okay, this is just one part. But another, when I see these kids, and of course, again, it's published, this information is available. People think that some kids, they're having some stuffy nose, let me say, they have some allergies, they say, okay, different types of pollen or something like this cause allergies. But allergy, let me say, it's not a simple thing in the case of autistic children. It's a matter of hypersensitivity. And what hypersensitivity is? And just at this point, we wouldn't talk about what happened, because I wouldn't talk about infectious agents at this point. The major problem is immune system dysregulation. Allergy and immune dysfunction, they're coming together hand by hand. And what kind of things? People think, okay, allergy is not a big deal. I mean, okay, we can have some drops into nostril, or wash noses with some salty water, and everything will be fine. No, it wouldn't be fine. Because what we have kids with so many skin allergic pathologies. They are connected. I mean, many kids, not all of them, but many of them having this type of pathology. Many kids are having allergic infectious rhinitis. I mean, it's another. Some of them have sinusitis, but what is important to say, there are so many skin problems, like even just, of course, maybe what I say, it wouldn't be obvious for parents, but for physicians, I mean, mastocytosis is a severe problem. Some people say it's autoimmune, some people say it's allergic, but in any case, it's hypersensitivity. And what is hypersensitivity? The body is producing a huge amount of mediators of inflammation, and specifically histamine production. Histamine is a very severe inflammatory mediator, in addition to some others. Histamine actually is being produced in the brain. And you can imagine a child who is we are working with the child, and say, to teach him or her how to behave, but he cannot understand things. He cannot appreciate all this treatment because his brain is inflamed. And so his brain is producing a big number of inflammatory mediators. And because the process has been continued for years, let me say, from the moment of birth or even before, I mean, the brain is connected completely different. In this case, how we can teach someone under a state of chronic low-grade inflammation with production of some pro-inflammatory mediators, and it's when child, let me say, is not seeing you, because a child in this case is in a completely different world. Sometimes just because having this big number of children, I've thought about this. Okay, infections. Just I thought about this. It's allergies, and we'll talk about autoimmune conditions. And when I started treating these children, so many parents were scared to death. They were calling me nonstop, saying, "Dr. Ken, we cannot understand what's happening to our child." I said, "What?" I mean, our child is, after months of treatment, is sitting on the floor and looking around. I mean, he or she's looking on the ceiling, on the walls, let me say, just coming to me and start sniffing, let me say, my smell and so on. So, okay, but do you know what's happening in this case? Your child, for the first time in his or her life, came back to the earth. He is not, because he or she saw a completely different world. His or her vision was completely different. I mean, they didn't see things differently, many of them. They didn't hear things differently. They couldn't touch, I mean, they couldn't, hold any touches because sensitivity was very high. The world was completely different. And just for the first time, they started seeing many, especially for some children, when the children who were a little bit younger, mothers were saying, okay, my child is not sitting on my lap, let me say, and keeping my face and trying, let me say, to look into my face. He's sniffing me, he's, staying next to me. And just the only thing I've done in this case, I treated infections. That's the only thing I've done for the first months, first couple of months. I was treating viral, bacterial, and fungal infections and some supplements to reduce inflammation. That's it. Nothing else. No antipsychotic, not things, because many of them have gone through antipsychotic preparations, let me say, and some of them had more or less acceptable experience, and many of them had a very bad experience. Many parents didn't want to use them because they heard the stories about what kind of changes children could get. That's what's happening. Okay, the treatment of just of infection. You know, but time is passing by. I mean, this I see more and more children, and I started to pay attention to some conditions which are known to us as autoimmune, not disorders, autoimmune diseases, because there is a huge class of autoimmune diseases. It's 100 to 150 diseases. We call them autoimmune. And just before we start talking about autoimmune diseases, I must say that we know now the great majority of, or if not all autoimmune diseases, they are a result of previous infection. There is a known mechanism to us at this point when the immune system starts getting dysregulated, and let me put this way to make it simple to understand. The immune system is, let's say, it's blind. It's blind at the same time it's overactive. I mean, and what happens in this case? Because it's all our microbes, viruses, bacteria, fungi, ourselves, we build of proteins, we build of some carbohydrates, some structures, sugary structures, would say, not because of that, we call them carbohydrates and lipids. But the initial, let me say, product, let me say, for making us is a protein. And this protein, I mean, and proteins are enzymes to make lipids, proteins are enzymes to make sugars, I mean, this in our body. But in terms of recognition, because in many cases, not in all cases, I mean, our immune system, in order to find non-self agent like a bacterium or virus or fungus, it has a system of recognition. And recognition, I mean, a molecule which will be considered, I mean, for recognition, we call this an antigen. Antigen is a foreign molecule, for example, the immune system can detect when it's attacked, I mean, and tries to destroy. But when we have autoimmune, when we have a dysregulated immune system, the immune system starts attacking own proteins, and this is, in this case, what we have, and we have an autoimmune disorder of different kind, depending on the tissue, for example, which was misunderstood. For example, instead of attacking some viruses, some antibodies or some cells who are responsible for this type of immunity, they attack our brain cells. In this case, we have a condition we call them demyelination. Demyelination, let me say, it's a part of autoimmune process when our own antibodies are destroying first so-called our immune cells. They can attack themselves and destroy our neurons, as shields of our neurons, brain cells, shields of connections between neurons. And okay, in this case, what should we expect from our brains if they're always under attack? They're under attack initially by the virus, get infected. And they are, I mean, attacked by inflammation. Inflammation meaning low-grade inflammation, in which some immune system cells, we call them microglia in the brain, they attack. They attack producing some mediators of inflammation. They produce some oxidative stress molecules. And you know, because our brain is, whether we like it or not, it's a big chunk of lipid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and these molecules react or reactive oxygen species or reactive nitrogen species, they are causing lipid peroxidation. What should we expect from the brain, which actually is under the attack by so many factors? And an additional factor we see, it's some antibodies produced by our immune cells, which are attacking not invaders, attacking our brain cells. And this poor child having so many things. Some people could say, okay, it's interesting, maybe what came to my mind, of course, I cannot state it strong, but logically, you know what happened? People say, okay, my child was normal. They say, then there was a vaccination and my child. But the problem is, in this case, because when a child is born, we say, he or she just, appear. It's an early neonatal period. Nothing has changed yet. The only thing, just a child is having some infection, some inflammation, but but the brain is not mature. The child at that time, for example, he or she is not capable to produce normal human reaction. But the brain, after delivery, it continues maturing, say, and going through several critical stages in which, for example, brain is acquiring some additional functions, even in a child who was already born. But they're not just born because we have this situation, we have all this process. We don't see. We don't see, and some children are developing these changes kind of slowly, and from the early beginning, we start seeing some changes early, immediately after birth. Some children are given the situation when he or she is about 1 year old, 1.5 or 2 years old, and people say, okay, it's vaccination. No, it's not vaccination. It's so-called, we call it, it's an immune explosion. Just when we produce, let me say, a huge amount of these mediators, it could be a surgery using because it's pro-inflammatory. Just when we have anesthesia. Many parents are having, they say, okay, my child got acute infection, and after this, he started or she started getting worse. When we collect information, yes, about 8 or 9% people connected to vaccination. But the great majority of cases, actually, they are different. Even some psychological stress could cause something like this. Because psychological stress, let me say, is definitely affecting the immune system. That's what we see. And similarly, okay, it has nothing to do with infection, but infection is the beginning, and we see these consequences in different forms. But now, what we see in these children, we see a huge number of autoimmune pathologies. Autoimmunity, explain what autoimmunity is. People don't know or don't pay attention, or physicians don't pay attention. But these children, they're having, many of them, they have psoriatic problems. They have contact dermatitis. They have eczema, many of them, and eczema in many cases the part. When they get older, they start developing diabetes type 1, and I saw some children with insulin resistance, which is actually very close to diabetes type 2. In small children who are 6, 7, 8 years, okay, he or she has symptoms of type 2 diabetes. You wouldn't see this from, say, regular children. And there is another type of diabetes. We call it diabetes insipidus. It's called non-sugar diabetes. it's so, we see, I would say, we see it so often in these children. I mean, it means, because this type of diabetes actually is having two possibles, called central mechanism or peripheral mechanism. If things are taking place in the field of, in the area of hypothalamus and hypophysis, or in the kidneys, or both. And it's easy to diagnose. Because children are drinking a huge amount, they have polydipsia. Drinking a lot of water, 3-4 liters of liquids a day, and producing up to 4 liters of urine, up to 5 liters of urine. It's absolutely, and it's coming from inflammation,
Hmm.
coming from infection, and we can find infection in the kidney. Okay, another thing, just enumeration. These children are having rheumatoid arthritis. It's typical for them. They have ulcerative colitis. Another thing. They have celiac disease. It can be separate disease, but in autistic children, you see, it's a kind of a well-known state.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm not talking about autistic brain disorder. It's because about 20, 30, 40, or maybe more percent kids, they have autoimmune damage to the brain. This is what we're having. And just if you put together all things, and for example, a parent is coming to a doctor, and when the parent is talking to a doctor, he tries to explain something about some other things. You know what kind of answer they're going to get? Okay, it's not mine. Go to endocrinologist.
Mm-hmm.
Go to gastroenterologist. Okay, allergy. It's not up to me. There is a different type of doctor. And this poor parent, with a huge number of things to discuss with somebody, has no idea what to do, has no idea where to go. Because actually we don't have this type of specialists. This is the case. When a few times when I tried to present this to some experts from different universities, and when I was presenting something of this type, but actually right in the beginning, when I was start talking about this, I start seeing how some of them will start leaving the conference hall. When I asked about this, some people I know, they say, what else? You are talking to somebody who understands ABA therapy. They do some study how to improve language. This type of things. And you talk about something that they never studied. Okay, it's not a situation in which, for example, these people should be blamed. Okay, they have been trained to do something, and they try to do something, but how a therapist can treat autoimmune diseases, how a therapist can treat viral diseases or bacterial infections or some other things related somatic problems. And and this poor child lives, let me say, in the state of, severe pain. And what's important? Maybe I know this is a topic I can talk about this with no, endlessly. But talking to children who started getting better, seeing the ones, it's interesting. I mean, just for some parents, I'm saying, okay, you go away. I don't need you. You don't need me anymore. No, 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 no. I said, okay, because there is a questionnaire we call it CARS2. It's an official questionnaire which would describe the state of autism in a child. And it's well used. And children who start at a very high level, when they win, I mean, by scoring, they win lower than 30, it says there is no autism. But I said, okay, let's go lower, 25. And when these parents would come to somebody, as I told you, a psychiatrist would never diagnose autism. But the parents cannot stop because they say, if autism comes back, said it wouldn't. But they say, okay, our child is not speaking well. I said, now, there are no medications, let me say, to improve his or her speaking ability. But you are having a child who never spoke, and he or she was told that your child wouldn't be able to speak at all. Now he or she is speaking. Of course, he or she is speaking, let me say, kind of using broken language. But you see every month, every week, when you train a child, when you talk to him or to her, not because your child is not ready for school yet, but he or she is ready, let me say, just for communication. Because he or she needs to hear more. He or she needs to understand what the word or sentence mean. These children need to understand, let me say, a connection between saying and doing. I mean, this is the way. It's a long process, but they already started. That's what you need to do. And then your child will be fully spoken. Wouldn't be a problem. And in this case, I would say this is what today we discuss, an infection and how they're connected to possible hypersensitivities, I mean, allergies, how they're connected to. That's why actually at NIH, the Institute studying infectious diseases is called the Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases.
NIAID.
Yeah.
Or NAIID, yeah.
Yeah, it's together. And we discussed autoimmunity. And it's logical. Sometimes when I started these discussions, I was always told, okay, you cannot say you need to treat autism with antimicrobials or immunomodulators or anti-inflammatory medications or supplements. And people were right because it's such actually, because officially, let me say, and the government supports it. If you come either to a government or to a foundation, you say, okay, I'm treating autism using this and this. They say, no, it's crazy. Because autism, let me say, is not an infectious disease. Say it's not an autoimmune disease. It's not the disease inflammatory. In this case, how could you treat autism with medications or supplements which are having completely different purpose? Finally, I said, okay, let's treat not autism, because all these conditions are, typical for many people. But in the case of autism, we see this the full basket of these disorders. If in regular children we could see just one symptom or one disorder, we have a dozen or 2 dozen problem. But you know, but it's some, in this case, some people would say, like one of the, I mean, pretty well medical administrators, he said, okay, Ken, with this number of disorders, yes, I would agree, but how are we going to treat them? I said, it's easy. There is no necessity to treat, if we understand etiology, with ethiotropic treatment. It's pretty well known. Then we need to use some pathogenetic treatment. A number of things for treatment is not so big. There is no necessity to. Recently, I saw some company which actually designed some molecule and collected 1 billion. Also, they went public or investment, I mean, just for one molecule. But you know, it seems to me, in some cases, we're not talking science, we're talking about marketing. Okay, somebody saying, okay, guys, we have a molecule, it's a miracle molecule, it's a magic bullet, it's a kind of silver bullet. They collected the money and disappeared. That's what is happening.
Yeah.
That's what, from this point, but this type of treatment is actually zero. There is no necessity to, I mean, that may be the problem why
Well, that's the
the
problem.
players wouldn't be involved. Okay, there is no way to make big bucks. I mean,
Yeah.
but for the parents, for the foundations, and maybe this type of treatment should be kind of charity based, or it should be kind of program in which it shouldn't be a business. I mean, of course, it should be people who are doing this work should be paid.
Sure.
But it shouldn't be the business like somebody creates a kind of one molecule and then makes $1 billion or $2 billion. It's not the case, because in this particular case, there is no single medication which has no approval for treating particular conditions we see in autism. That's what I'd like to say today about autoimmunity, infectious disease, allergies, and then next time, when you have time, I'd like to discuss these interconnections.
Absolutely.
It's so simple to me. This is what actually is shocking. It's so simple. And we just don't look at this. Looks like there is some big, huge number of scientists who are getting funding for doing research. Yes, it's important because science is really important and should move forward. But we need to understand, in addition to that kind of basic science, some funding of some molecular mechanism, there is something which is already well known. We should think, because scientists who are working there, I would say 99% of them never saw autistic kids. Maybe because autism is a science of clinicians. And clinicians should be involved. We need to go through so-called, like in the field of cancer, multifunctional groups, even several physicians in different fields. I mean, and going through this, they will see everything in their field. It seems to me now we need to stop talking about that we won all infections, especially, I mean, COVID actually showed us that we didn't solve anything. And we need to go back, let me say, to blackboards, let me say, creating some groups, physicians, and we need to have an institution who would say, okay, guys, okay, let's collect think tanks of physicians, and let's have fights and discussions, and having a group of good scientists, physicians, we would be able to create a kind of, maybe for the first time, some consensus type recommendation for treating some comorbid conditions for autism and some underlying conditions. And people would see how these children who were suffering for years would become better and better.
Sounds good. Dr. Alibek, as always, I'll send you an email and we'll schedule the next one. Sound good?
Okay, and because you remember you have some, I mean, you wanted to ask some questions. Maybe next time, you know, just Tommy, it should be up to you. You can ask specific question because to me, you know, I can talk about this non-stop.
I know it's last time I asked so many questions. I didn't want to derail the conversation this time. That's why I didn't say anything. I just figured I'd let you go this time, and next time we'll
I
get back
understand
to me.
because today we talked about a kind of inseparable topic, and very difficult to separate what I said
Mhm.
and what I wanted to say. But next time, I'd like to show why we see this thing. Let me say
Sure.
how it looks from lab test standpoint, instrumental diagnosis. And based on this, we say, okay, just to confirm that it's not kind of incident, it's kind of regularity, medical regularity. And using well-known, approved treatment methods, there is no necessity to have a new approval. There is no necessity to treat autism. Okay, guys, let's start treating these conditions, this disorder. They are in front of us. That's it. You know, something like this. Okay, if somebody having a cardiovascular pathology, but in addition to cardiovascular pathology, he or she is having some kidney infection or some lung infection, doesn't mean that we're not going to treat this condition. Of course we will. With autism, it's absolutely the same thing. And people will see, for example, how as soon as we start getting rid of this or suppressing these pathologies, people would be amazed to see completely different kids.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure to pipe up next time, and I'll throw in my questions and pick your brain. And yeah, Dr. Alibek, as always, it's such a pleasure to have you on here, and thank you for some time out of your day.
Tommy, I'd like to say thank you to you because you are a great person.
Thank you.
Because you are the only one who decided to listen to this, and hopefully as well we move forward, we'll see how your, I mean, channel, or let me say, would be progressing because people who are interested in these conditions, they will start looking at this more and more.
Beautiful. Well,
Okay.
it's a total pleasure to have you on here, to have you talk about this topic. It's kind of a shame that no one else wants to listen, but hey, that's more for me. So if I get all the Dr. Alibek, that's not a bad thing in my book.
Tommy, in any case, thank you very much.
Yes,
we'll
sir.
be happy to talk to you anytime soon.
Absolutely. I'll send you an email after this, and I'll email you this episode when it's up. It'll be up sometime this evening, and then we will schedule the next episode.
It would be great. The only thing just I'm going to Virginia next week because Mary wants to spend whole week together with me. It will be quite a challenge because she loves to go either to New York or to Nashville or Vermont. Can you imagine to drive from Virginia to Vermont? I mean, then from Vermont to Boston, from Boston to some other places, I mean, to New York again, and to Ohio. It's once for 4 days. I was driving for 2,500 miles.
Good Lord.
You're
a madman.
But because she's a lovely girl.
Yeah.
autistic, of course, and be together with her.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I guess we'll schedule around that if it's the week after or whenever, or we'll get to it. And
Okay.
like I said, I'll send you this episode when it's up. And Dr. Alibek,
Mm-hmm.
as always, thank you so much for coming on here, sir.
Thank you to you.
Yes,
Thank you.
sir. God bless everybody. Stay safe out there. Dr. Alibek,